Welcome, listeners, to www.ironradio.org, the website and podcast for all things strength sports and sports nutrition. Thanks for listening.
Good morning, everybody. Here on Iron Radio. This is Phil Stevens, strength coach, powerlifter, Highland Games athlete, and I make all kinds of stuff.
This is Dr. Mike Nelson, creator of the Flex Diet Cert, BizFlex Cert, associate professor at the Carrick Institute, and hanging out at home in Minnesota for, well, most of the summer now.
Coach Durrell out of Strengthfield in KC. I am an international weightlifting coach, a former CrossFit owner and coach, and right now it's all about the American Open.
American Open.
And this is Lonnie Lowry, somewhere in the woods right now. Nutritionist, exercise physiologist, adjunct professor, that sort of thing.
I got to say, Mike, before we get going, because you're in Minnesota.
Uh-oh.
So I watched the quarterbacks documentary, and I got to say, like, the people in Minnesota have to be, like, the nicest in the world. Because you watch that show, and Kirk Cousins is in there, and he goes all kinds of places, in Minnesota, of course.
Yeah.
And, like, nobody fucks with him. Like, he's just walking around Barnes & Noble, and they're like, oh, yeah, leave him alone, he's reading. Like, that wouldn't happen.
Yeah, it's the weirdest thing where, like, in person, like, that's totally true, but some of the, I don't read any of the fan stuff online because, like, the small minority of the most vocal people, I'm sure this is probably, like, with most sports teams, it's like, oh my God, you're a bunch of the cruelest bastards ever.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so it's this weird dichotomy where, like, totally in person, like, no one will say anything, but, like, online, there's, like, this small percentage of people that just spend their whole day in their mom's basement, like, you know, going crazy on people.
Yeah.
I just started watching that series, too. I just got through the first episode. It's pretty cool. I like it so far.
It is. It's good. Yeah.
Yeah.
It goes into a lot of the in-depth stuff. It's good seeing the behind-the-scenes stuff.
Yeah, totally.
Mahomes has a... how do I put this? He's got a potty mouth. Holy shit. He was F-bombing, like, and I guess they cut out a lot of them.
You would know.
Oh my God. He was just motherfucker this and holy. I was like, wow, okay, we're doing this.
This is shocking to hear you say this, Phil. I mean, I can't tell you over the years how many times I'd have to put, you know, caution, potty mouth, powerlifter at work.
Oh, it was much worse than me. It was worse than me. I was like, holy moly. And seeing that on TV, I was like, okay, this is awesome. I like this guy.
You know, Jim Wendler, he pushed back on me on that one time. I said, I'm going to have to bleep you constantly. This is supposed to be like PG-13. I forget what he said. Something like, Lonnie, Jesus doesn't care or something. I forget what he said. I'm like, I'm not trying to be overtly religious. Now I can put a little E on episodes. It makes it way easier. Yeah. Okay. I found two studies that are very related, and I'm not going to get in the weeds at all. I mean, I'm literally in the weeds right now, but in the scientific weeds. And this is the kind of stuff, everybody, before we hit record, this falls into the Phil Stevens, like, really, are we still doing this? You know, here's the title of the first one. This is from the Endocrine Society. BMI alone, body mass index alone, may not be a sufficient indicator of metabolic health. Here's the little blurb. Body mass index, or BMI, is not a complete measure of metabolic health, and a high proportion of U.S. adults with normal BMI still have obesity, according to research being presented Friday at the ENDO 2023, the Endocrine Society's annual meeting in Chicago. So here's a pull quote. I'm just looking at this abstract. They found that nearly 36% had a body mass index of over 30. So listeners know, just wait for height. The traditional definition of obesity, right, over 30. But 74%, more than double, had obesity based on body fat percentage. So 74%.
Wow.
Now, what gets me is this talk about you could be normal body weight, or as far as BMI, weight for height, and still be flabby, still be fatty, apparently have no muscle mass. And here's another one. This is from Science Daily as well, from Tel Aviv University. It's just a similar topic. 1/3 of normal weight individuals are obese, according to a study based on body fat percentage. As researchers examined the anthropometric data from 3,000 Israeli women and men, it was, Tel Aviv University, and concluded that body fat percentage is a much more reliable indicator of an individual's overall health and cardiometabolic risk than the body mass index, which is widely used in clinics today. Now, when I read this stuff and I hear normal body weight, well, first of all, everybody knows BMI isn't body comp, right?
Mhm.
It's not body composition. And over the years, we've all talked about this, how we pay high risk insurance because, even now my body mass index is like 29, 30, and I'm not that heavily built like I was, but over the years, I think you just slowly add bone density and muscle mass and all this stuff adds up. Now, am I real lean? No, but I'm not, I get these little things like you should talk to a dietitian because your body mass index is too high. Okay, here I come.
Mhm.
But I guess my question for you guys do you see this? Do people come to you that are normal body weight for height, and they must have no muscle mass? They're just flabby because these guys have a high percent body fat, even though they're not technically overweight per se. Are you dealing with that, or do people gravitate to you guys that are already gifted in some way or muscly in some way?
Oh no, I'd say it's more normal now than ever. But that's
Yeah.
our society.
Yeah.
Our society. Our lifestyle, like we've talked about in even recent previous episodes. Like people are generally sitting on their ass more now than ever before, which leads to a whole society of people that are either fat or skinny and fat. There's a lack of muscle tone worldwide.
Skinny
Except,
fat.
I'm sure
Yeah.
in like the Congo or some shit where the kids are digging in mines to make electric batteries, they're in good shape. But,
Oh my god! Oh my god!
but that's not, it's
At least to their worries.
the Western world. It's just what it is. We have less people just playing at all.
Yeah.
So there's a ton of it, and that's the sad fact is even the people that aren't obese. Everybody talks about like in America, 47% of the people are technically obese by BMI. Yeah, but the other like 70% is just fat and skinny.
Right.
So
No muscle mass, right? Yeah.
yeah, we get that a lot. That's like that one horrible story where that girl came to me 8 years ago, and she called me up and said she wanted to do a figure comp, and she had one picked out in like 8 weeks and wanted to help me peek out. She showed up. She was like, I had to tell her. She was like, "Yeah, you're like 5 years out."
Tough love.
Because she had just never seen a weight.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. I'd have to say it also. That's what people don't understand is that just that in itself leads to orthopedic issues and
metabolic.
You're just
Yeah.
injured in general. You are. Yeah, I know Ripto is like Mark Ripto, and he has stronger people are harder to kill, and it's like mainly just a cliche type thing, but it's the fucking truth. At the same time, it is real. When you're just frail, you're easily harmed, and that's a lot of.
That's another T-shirt. Are you frail? On the back, easily harmed.
Yeah. It's just true, and it's sad. But like we said, you get both now. There's people that are in the best shape of ever, but there's a vast majority that are in real bad shape, especially kids. Like I had so many kids come in that just can't control their own body.
Wow.
Yeah.
But
the kids thing is, I would agree with that. Mostly because I started working with more, like focusing on training more kids. My gym population average age was getting a little up there, so I had to reverse the averages a little bit. So I started focusing on the kids a little bit more. But yeah, just the idea of like the movement dysfunction that I see with kids is like similar to adults too, but it's worse with kids because like even a bear crawl, right? Like something that you think would be something pretty simple for most kids to come in and do. It takes like probably the first 12 weeks and we do it every day with the warm up. and they can't even, usually do it, or it's like insanely difficult for them to get through the, this little bear crawl series that I have, which, I use that just to kind of indicate some of their other movement patterns that I, need to look at or fix or whatever, if the toes are turned out and things I look at, just athletically. But in terms of like my average adult client that comes in, just like off the street, yes, it's going to be, for me, I get a lot of people who like, oh, I used to be active, and maybe there's some like muscle mass there just from, their past. But a lot of times it's going to be, especially with women, and again, they don't always understand the context of like what has to happen for them to get the physique that they actually want. It's like, yes, fat loss, but also muscle mass is a significant part of your journey. Like it's 1A, 1B, not like 1, 2, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And convincing people of that, especially women, is, men too, actually, but it's somewhat tough just on the outset because it's like, well, my body fat is here, my weight is here when they go do, whatever scan or something like that. And it's like, yes, muscle mass is what you need. Like that is what will turn the percentages in your favor, and you'll be able to you'll feel good doing so. Like obviously if you get too low of body fat, you're going to feel terrible. But also if you just get too low of weight without any muscle mass, you'll also feel bad. Like you won't necessarily feel that great moving around in daily life. So it's one of the first hurdles to cover.
It's a good point. You have to have something to unveil, right? Like how do you do a physique competition? Getting rid of the body fat reveals, it unveils what you've built. And if there's no structure underneath, what are you doing?
Yeah, we're showing off you're showing off a skeleton. That's all you have. No, and that's with, like Jarrell said, with women. That's still, I can't tell you, and I'm sure he's dealt with it too. The number is almost countless now of how many females that I've brought in, and they actually get heavier and smaller.
Oh yeah,
over time, and they're amazed because they're tied to the scale. They're so tied to the scale, and which is of course tied to BMI, and but. To reach their goal, they actually got heavier to fit
denser
in smaller things. And, that's a bridge to cross, man. And it's worse with women, and it's gotten worse with men, with boys, the scale. And a lot of times I just have to try and get people, and it's a fight to throw the fucking thing away. Get off of it. You do not need to be on it twice a day.
Unhealthy.
Yeah. It's this obsession with the numbers on there. And it's like, let's worry about how things are fitting and getting them to concentrate on something more. Like when I have people dieting, I'd much rather, especially if somebody's like grossly out of weight and out of shape, like they have no muscle and they're obese. Like, let's concentrate on something more additive and positive. Like what?
Right.
Let's look at our advancement in the gym. If we
achievable
keep looking at that, yes. And if you keep making positive, like those negatives are going to go away by a default of just training hard and eating well.
I think it's the best thing you can do with clients is to focus on strength, because you can see almost weekly gains. And with body comp, just the math is depressing, just to be able to shed a visible amount of fat. I would think you'd have to lose 10 pounds on yourself before you noticed it. Other people might not notice you've lost enough fat, 20. So you're talking about 35 to 70,000 calorie deficit. That takes a long time. And so we focus on that out of the gate. People are just going to give up. Why not work on strength? Like you said, then you build muscle mass. Now you've got a sink for carbohydrate stores and all the other metabolic benefits. Plus you're just strong and feel great. Maybe over time you even kind of forget about just getting shredded or whatever. You're just like, I like being muscly.
Yep.
I don't know.
Yep. And that's happened a lot too, where they do. You do make that transition. They're like, screw getting lean. I'm just going to get strong. And guess what happens usually then?
They usually get leaner.
They usually get leaner.
Exactly.
Exactly. Well, that's like even in powerlifting. You look at powerlifting, and I know a lot of super heavyweight lifters. Now, I know some that are like, I know some super heavyweight lifters that are like, they've done one meet and they just started. Different story. But when we're talking about high level athletes that are big in any sport, you look at fucking NFL linemen, you look at Dan Bell, you look at, big guys in sports, they didn't accidentally get big. Like, they all force feed themselves to get there. And so it's not like it's on purpose. Like, they're having to work to be that fucking big while training that hard. Same thing with linemen. Like, and that's why, like, when linemen retire, usually what you see with linemen when they retire is they get small finally, because they finally don't have to do that. So if you're actually training hard, and that's the point I'm getting to, like, if you just train hard and eat well, it's gonna happen. If you're consistent with it, you're gonna get smaller and you're gonna get leaner, unless you purposely make yourself heavier. Like, I've had to always force feed myself up to meets. It's just the way it works. You can't. That's like that BS about not being able to out-train a shitty diet. Like, it's true to a point, because most people won't train that hard. But if you train hard enough, like, there's a whole world of professional athletes that most of them eat like shit.
Oh,
And they out-train it. It's true. And nobody likes to face that fact. It's like, they did that documentary on, what's his name, Ocho Cinco or whatever, and he, like, ate every meal at McDonald's. Dude was jacked. But he fucking trained like 7 hours a day. He had to. So
I have a question for both nutrition gentlemen here. So let's say you have, along the lines of this topic, basically, so you have women, or at least younger guys, who come in like way underfed on the average. Like, they might have some, like, I would call it like a minor disordered eating situation, where it's like they undereat most of the time and then just binge, once or twice a week or whatever. And then coming into a situation where you're starting to lift, you're starting a training process, and starting with the idea of like, no, there has to be food to cut from, right?
Mm-hmm.
So do you gently build them towards a higher calorie, like a higher macro set, and then back down? Or do you go out of the gate and just hit their kind of cutting numbers, which will feel like a lot to them at first, right?
yeah.
Like, they'll feel like, oh, this is a lot of food. Do you just start there and then see where it goes, and then kind of gently try to increase their numbers, like in terms of muscle mass, like focusing on the muscle mass aspect of BMI?
I mean, my bias would be, depends on how overweight they are, or what their goals are, and then also psychologically, how well do they handle it? I would think one thing I've kind of changed my opinion on in the past, I would have always been, oh no, we have to go up first and go really slow. But if they're relatively healthy, let's say they have a fair amount to lose, they're strength training, they're doing some aerobic stuff, psychologically, if they can handle it, I'm okay now actually having them run a pretty heavy deficit, even if their total calories are relatively low. The caveat being, I don't want the rest of their life to be a trash bin fire. And are they going to be okay being in that state and being a little bit hungry, etc.? So the reality is, most of the time, do I do that? No, but I have a few times. Most of the time, they're just not used to it. Like, they don't feel good, their performance is dropping, and so it's too difficult. So usually I tend to go up, and I use performance as the main driver. So if their performance is always lacking and they're always, not doing as well, then I'm going to use that as an indicator to try to get them to, usually eat more protein, do more walking, do things to kind of offset the more calories we're going to run through the system. And in short, if in perfect world, I would just bump them up to a higher flux. Meaning, if they were weight stable at some ungodly low level of like 1,500 calories, could I get them weight stable at like 3,000 calories? most of the time they'll automatically kind of recomposition. But again, that's sometimes difficult because you're talking about more food prep, more sleep, more walking, more movement. But that would be my bias.
No, I agree on the flux thing. Like, you got to think about ins and outs. What I've done when I'm in that situation, and I've actually been in that situation before where I feel like, God, I'm really not eating enough. Like, I'll do a calorie food log. I'm like, oh my God, I'm only eating like 2,200 calories a day or something. What the hell? But I would focus on protein, like you were saying, Mike.
Yeah.
Like, instead of just obsessing over calorie numbers, get them eating 4 whopping protein meals a day. If they're under eating,
Oh yeah,
their protein needs are already higher. That's all that old Gail Butterfield stuff, they're not using protein properly, their body. They need more protein. So 4 times a day, eat like 40, 50, or even more grams of protein a day, unless they've got some reason that they can't, which is unlikely. And just get them eating regularly again, because there's very little chance, and if you can convince them, I guess, that excess protein is not going to be quote unquote fattening. I mean, when we talk, I'm not talking about Big Macs. I'm talking about lean protein foods. Chicken breast. The more chicken breasts I've eaten in my life, the leaner I have been during those. Because when you're full of a chicken breast, you're not full of a Big Mac, or a Blizzard birthday cake. Yeah, birthday cake.
No, I mean, that makes sense. That's what, like, my wife's deal. That's her go-to. Is like, if we're going out to eat and we know it's a place that has bullshit food, she'll slam a chicken breast before we go.
Right on. Yep.
Because now she's more full. She doesn't have room. She's already filled up with at least some good stuff. But, no, and what you see is, like, when somebody's drastically underfed, they automatically have, over a short amount of time, they become less active. And they don't even know it. Because they're fucking wore out all the time. Now, like, you see this in these reality shows now are, like, super popular about, like, survival shows and stuff. And you'll see these people within a week. Like, most of them, like, eat up for this challenge. And then within a week, they're just, man, I'm wore out. I'm tired. I got no energy. And, yeah, you're not eating. And it's the same thing happens with people in the regular world. They go on these drastic diets, and then, yeah, they're still working out. So they get their 1 hour workout in 3 days a week or whatever it is. But the rest of their life, they're like a slug because they just have no energy.
No
and
fuel.
they don't realize that. And so they've done this drastic diet where they're eating 1,500 calories a day, but now they're only expending 1,200. Because they're so freaking lazy now. And so if you can get them to eat, all of a sudden they're like, man, I have all this energy, and they're going and doing stuff. I'm mowing the lawn, I'm freaking weeding, I'm whatever. I'm going out and playing basketball. And it more than cancels itself out because they have energy to do stuff again. They're not just in a brain fog and a body fog all the time.
Yeah, it's a good point, though, Drew. I mean, that's a tough situation. Someone's gone so far left. How do you get them moving right again? Because they're stagnant and stuck at a really low level. And life is small.
Yeah.
And one last quick one on that, too, is I will send them a scale and send them a video of how to actually use it and try to do a 7-day log of everything they're eating. Because many times they're like, oh, I'm eating 1,200 calories per day. And then you run the little thing and it was like, oh, I was actually at 2,600 per day. Oops.
Yeah. Honest baseline.
Too.
Totally.
Yeah.
Underreporting.
Yeah, I will say
that
there is a show that was eye-opening to me on that. It's like the Secret Eater show.
Oh, wow.
And it ruined me for a second. Like, it ruined me for a second with clients because I was like, you guys are lying to me.
Yep.
Nope. You're lying.
Liar.
It's just like the education of knowing like what you're taking in. You're like, nope, that's a lie.
Yes.
And some of those numbers were drastic. It's like, I only eat 1,500 calories. And it's like, you're eating 4,500 calories. Like, holy shit, dude, that is a lot.
We've all had those clients, though. Like, I've had numerous clients that were like 400 plus pounds and try and convince me I only eat once a day. That's like a salad. There ain't no fucking way. Ain't no way.
Yeah. No. So it's just one of those things. But yeah, I was just curious how you guys approach that.
No,
Yeah, yeah.
it's true. Physics is tattling on you, right?
Yeah.
When you're that heavy, you're that fat, and I eat a salad
no
and
way.
a dried chicken breast once a day. Yeah, well,
Yeah.
physics is telling on you.
Yes, exactly. So.
Hey everybody, Iron Radio is back, and in an expanded way. What can you expect? Well, first, you can get it simulcast every week on the nutritionradio.org network, as well as on the original podcast. It'll appear regularly on iTunes, Spotify, and all your favorite podcasting sites. We have a new Iron Radio / Nutrition Radio Facebook page as well. Please check us out. We're even backed up on YouTube. Second, please tell your friends who are longtime loyal listeners that they may see emails that share just the episode link and the show notes. This is a new thing, and we hope it will build community. Third, if you were a supporting member in the past, we may prompt you to resume through PayPal, but we will confirm each and every donor before reinstating that membership category. We'll never just restart your $4 auto payments without agreement from you. And of course, we will accept new members moving forward as well. Starting back slowly and honorably is the goal. And lastly, expect the sister show Nutrition Radio to expand into once weekly 45 to 60 minute episodes with guest co-hosts covering the same nerdy nutrition news that's been broadcast for a few months now in daily 10-minute clips. We hope that an expanded presence will get you the news, education, banter, and guests that's made Iron Radio's community so loyal from the start. You are appreciated.
What I wanted to hit on, we talked a little bit before the show, is I don't know where this came from, but there's still something going on in this world as far as sport athletes. When I say sport athletes, like I've talked about this before, I'm not talking strength athletes, not like powerlifting, Highland Games, and weightlifting, but football, basketball, baseball, blah, 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 soccer. And like that strength training, it's starting to come around, but there's still a prevalence that like strength training is bad, especially traditional like free weight strength training, because people are going to get too muscle bound for their sport. And I'm just still trying to wrap my eyes around where this came from. And the big one for me is like watching my kids in sports and watching other kids I deal with in sports. Like I had one baseball player that came to me all summer, and we drastically made him stronger. You're talking a 17-year-old kid, so he's primed to just get strong. Like if you get him to eat a little bit, and you take a 17-year-old boy and feed them and train them, they fucking get stronger, like now. And he came back to his baseball season, and his coach was going to kick him off the team because he said he was too big. You're getting too big for baseball. And then, of course, the narrative changed when he started knocking dingers out of the ballpark. And but still, there's this feedback from coaches, and I'm just not sure where it comes from. And I don't understand. The thing I don't understand is, like we talked about before the show, like, yes, it is true. Like when I took up powerlifting, I took it up to an elite level. Like my delve into powerlifting was to be as strong as possible in those 3 lifts. So yes, I lost some mobility. I lost some things like that. I wasn't in shape like I was before for multi-sport things. Like I'd go out and pull a hamstring or something if I tried to go sprint. And that's more to do with I just wasn't used to that activity. But like we don't wake up and just become too fucking jacked. And that's what these coaches don't understand. Like it literally takes decades of dedicated effort to become too fucking big to where it's a restriction. And I don't know. I wanted to talk to you guys about that and just let's flesh this out a little bit.
You know what's crazy about that with baseball is that why would you maintain that logic when, or why would you even whine about steroids in baseball?
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
It's like, why would that even be a case? Why would that be illegal if it's not a huge advantage to be? There's not like a baseball steroid. It's strength. Like you're getting stronger.
Like Barry
More
Bonds
muscle
and Mark McGwire would not be famous if getting too strong. Like there's a reason they were knocking, and that's like this year, or is it this coming season? Like the whole steroid ban in baseball, that rule is gone.
Really?
Because it was because when they signed that on, it was for so many years, and like it's ending, and they're talking about not re-upping it. So hopefully we're going to see dingers again. And, no, seriously.
Oh my God.
If you go back, like my father-in-law is a huge fucking baseball fanatic. And if you look at the viewership of baseball from when that ruling came through, like the viewership has dropped drastically. Like people want to see home runs. They want to see people trying to beat the home run record. And how do we do that? Well,
Let them use.
The records right now are set by people that we're using. So you can't expect people that aren't to do it, So if they're talking about just letting it roll and just not testing. And you look at anybody who's trained, like I was lucky enough to train NBA athletes, and one of the first deals that I dealt with them was asking them about their testing protocols. And in the NBA, they have 1 day a year. If outside of your rookie year, once you're past your rookie year, you have 1 day in the year that this is the day they can test you on. And that's on purpose.
It's
because the league
Yeah.
knows you're going to do it. And they're like, okay, Jim, on July 9th, you need to be clean. Okay? You got that?
Okay. Right?
But then they can say they test also,
yes,
which is
and
kind
they
of
can
ironic.
say they test, and look, everybody passed.
Yeah.
Of course they did.
Yeah.
They knew it July 9th at 10 a.m. They needed to piss in a cup.
Right.
So,
Phil, I think it was more than 10 years ago. A journalist wrote an article and he shocked everybody. It was like in Sports Illustrated or something. It was some big time publication. And he said, why don't we let pro athletes use? Nobody wants to be bored. They don't want to go, and I mean, that was back in the day. He was even taking jabs. I think it was him about like the WNBA. It's like, how come that doesn't get as many views as the NBA? Well, because people don't jump as high and the athletes don't slam dunk as much or whatever he was talking about. But to what kind of irritates me about this is, let's say that's true. Well, the same people who don't want to go watch baseball because there's not as many home runs, they're the same ones that would mock, bodybuilding has this bizarre double standard or powerlifting where there's a drug version and a natural version. I'm like, and which one do people watch?
Yep.
Yeah.
So don't try to shame the strength sports, the muscle sports. What a bizarre dichotomy. It's like, at least it's honest, right? Because in the other sports, I mean, track, NFL, are you kidding? Look at these guys. They have 30-inch quads. Come on.
Yep. Look at the day of social media as far as that. Like, let's say just strength sports, powerlifting, whatever. Okay, we're in the social media area. So you got YouTube, people posting all these videos. What videos are getting the views? The fucking dudes deadlifting 1,000 pounds who aren't clean. Not Johnny that's been clean and he deadlifts 506. I'm sorry. It's natural. That's what people want to see. And you have to understand, after baseball's been around since the 1800s or whatever. Like, we've probably reached peak physical natural performance by now. The only way to go further, and that's why these athletes do it, is at some point you got to take that next step.
Technology.
Because it's not like those people. It's not like those people back in 1847 didn't fucking train hard. And by the 19 whatevers, it became an actual professional sport. Like when baseball began, those guys all had jobs. Like they'd go play baseball and then they'd go to the factory. But now they're making multi-million dollars a year. And I'm sorry, I've said it on the show before. If I owned the Kansas City Chiefs and I'm dealing with these linemen, I'm not going to tell you to take shit, but I'm going to tell you to do whatever you can to kill that guy across from you. Because I'm paying you $47 million a year. It's just the fact of it. You need to do anything you can to win.
ROI, right? Return on investment.
Yes, and it's just the truth. And no, but I mean, back to the topic, we were talking about, like...
Yeah, there's all this evidence. Like, how can coaches still think muscle mass is bad when everything we've just said proves that it's good?
Yes.
Right?
and I think it's amplified in today's age because of what we talked about with the BMI and everything. Like, the average person now is out of shape. The average child now, the Jarrell sees coming to his gym, can't control their own body. So if we take this average kid that has, hey, Jarrell, I want to wrestle. help me get stronger. And Jarrell makes this kid markedly stronger, and he goes in, he has no wrestling background. But now from 6 months with Jarrell, he's stronger than the average kid. And he goes and wrestles this weak kid that's technically good because he's been wrestling for 2 years. He's got a hell of a chance to win just because he's physically more adept and able. And it just, the thing that bugs me is like all these people, the whole goddamn Musclebound thing bugs the shit out of me. Because it's just false. Like it doesn't happen that quick. And
not only that, but even the eyeball test, that's kind of what makes me mad more so than anything else. Is like, it doesn't even pass the eye test. Like, football, you don't see it as much. Baseball, though, you see it a lot, where it's like, they have these, maybe it's their uniforms, like you can't really see the physiques. But those guys are strong. Mm-hmm. But basketball, and I deal with some, like basketball is like the least likely to hit the weight room as far as the sport goes on the college campus. Like they're the least likely. But yet, you look at LeBron James and like how much success he's had, or even Zion Williamson, and these dudes are just, I mean, this is not diminishing their skill. Like LeBron James, highly skilled, Zion Williamson has a lot of skills, but they get a lot of their game from just being more athletic and stronger. Like not just like God-given speed kind of thing, but also stronger. They can get through a body, you know? And I mean, look at Shaq's whole career. You know, Shaq is a Hall of Famer because he was just so much bigger and stronger than everyone that they just could, like, you just could not deal with it. Like, it was embarrassing that these grown men looked like children next to him, you know?
Who was the other kid that came out about the time LeBron did that was jacked? High school kid. Oh, fuck. It was LeBron and another all-star kid. Anyway. Go ahead.
I mean, Carmelo was right around.
Yes. And those two came out, and that's when I started dealing with those NBA players. And you know why? Because they were getting beat up by them. They were getting beat up by LeBron and Cabral, and they're like, we got to do something. I need to get stronger. I'm smoking weed and playing video games. It's not working anymore.
Right.
So,
no, absolutely.
And, you know, that's why they came to me. And I'm not going to say who it was. It was, you know, it was a couple players with the Houston Rockets, but he's like, if I want to stay in this league, dude, I need to get stronger, you know, because these kids coming out are kicking my ass.
Yeah, look at an NBA game from when I was a kid, from in the 70s. You know, Dr. J, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. These guys were not. They were tall, and that's kind of it.
They were tall, and
that was it. Yeah. And the guys on the court now, they look like they're 50 pounds heavier.
Yes.
You know.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, I would say it's even gone back the other direction a little bit. Like the 90s. I mean, that's a big story with Jordan. Was like, oh man, I'm going against these Pistons and they're beating me up in the lane. Mm-hmm. And so he was like, I got to get stronger. And he goes and put on muscle mass. And then did muscle mass hurt Michael Jordan's career from that point? Like, I don't feel like it did. Like, I mean, it's the same with, I mean, even now you look at the kids that come out that are like the big prospects. The biggest prospect right now, Wimbian or whatever, he's super skilled, but I mean, he looks frail.
Yeah.
And if he doesn't put any muscle mass on, like you know, to me, it's like a shorter career. You know, those guys who don't focus on it, you know, no matter what their size, like if you don't put any muscle mass on, their careers end up a lot shorter. But just in sport in general, it's crazy that you would have like, I mean, look at great wrestlers. I mean, I don't know that I would have that pushback from wrestlers, like getting stronger, but I forget the Russian dude's name, but if you just look at his neck and you're like, oh, like, okay, like this is different than just doing some push-ups in the morning or something. Like you have to lift weights and train hard to like build a, and it's not necessarily about the physique, but that stuff is helpful. Like just having muscle mass is helpful and it won't take away from your overall athletic performance and power. It will mostly enhance it unless you focus on it too much. Like getting to a, you know, let's say a double body weight squat, you know, that's not going to take a significant amount of time in your life, so to speak. But going from double body weight or 200 pounds and you get to, you know, 400, 440 squat, going from that to 500, 600, that's a different thing. And it probably won't apply to, like, you're probably not going to have access to that strength on the court. Mm-hmm. Like anything past and it's different in every sport, but anything past, let's say, that double body weight number, it's what do you have to spend to get it
Yes.
to.
Yes. Yeah,
Well,
100%.
it makes you wonder where it comes from. It's like, yes, we've all heard stories of like the Greg Kovacs, who's so big, he has so little flexibility, he can't even wipe his own butt, and he's got his girlfriend doing that. But that's an absurd, drug-enhanced, hypertrophy-specific situation, And to be honest, I don't know where these coaches are getting their idea that, it's going to make you muscle bound and not mobile or not flexible or whatever. I don't even think they're exposed to like the Greg Kovacs of the world, or pro bodybuilders. So where is it even coming from? They don't have any evidence for it. It's like an urban legend. I don't know.
Well, and I don't know, to get the rubber to the road, I think Jarrell started touching on it. Like, it's not that hard as a strength coach to realize how far to push these athletes. Because there's a point, even in my own career, like I made it to a 675 deadlift fairly easily. And I was only like 220. It was after that, to get to 730, like I had to make drastic changes. And I started having to limit other activity, and I started having to eat more. Like, there's a fairly easy point within strength training somebody that, like, if I'm training a kid and he's getting stronger easily, why the fuck am I going to stop? There's no, this is easy for him. This is natural for him. It's the point to stop, in my opinion, as a coach, is where we have to start making changes and we start having to fight.
To specialize.
To get stronger in that. Well, man, we really have to back off this to make your deadlift go up. Well, his deadlift doesn't matter to his sport. Like, get them easy strong. As easily strong as you can. Like, if Pat Mahomes was my client and I could easily take him from just pull numbers out of my ass, 315 deadlift to 405, like, why wouldn't I? If we didn't have to change anything else he's doing, because he's structurally just stronger all around, and it did not hurt any of his other training. Like, the minute you have to start backing off his other sport, that's where we have problems.
Yeah.
But just make him as strong as you can easily, and you're there, man. Any grown-ass man could pull 405, 500 in most cases.
These coaches, it's almost like they need to feel firsthand that everything in life is more submaximal, right? When your 1 RM is sky high, like you said, from just, let's say it's the easy strength curve. You don't have to specialize. You don't have to start stopping other stuff or force feeding or more than reasonable, whatever. Everything is so submaximal. Your body weight's a joke. Your sports implements are a joke. And it's not like this happens all at once and you lose all fine motor skills and you can no longer swing a bat. If it happened all at once, you might have some kind of argument. Instantly, you're Greg Kovacs. Instantly, your body mass index is 40. You might be a little awkward for a while, but that's not how the nervous system works.
No, and that's where like the route I take with multi-sport athletes, pitchers. Like, for instance, I had one pitcher come in, really high prospect in Kansas. He was like number 3 prospect or whatever. He had as much muscle as Gumby. And so what do we do? I concentrated just on making him stronger. But, he started coming to me 3 days a week. I had to make him and his parents sign a contract that you will keep practicing your sport while we get you stronger.
Oh, yeah.
We made him markedly stronger, because if he did not, let's say he just quit pitching for 4 months and came to me, and we brought his squat and his deadlift and everything up 150 pounds. Now he goes back and pitches, it's all fucked up. His mechanics are all jacked up. But if they train their sport through these adaptations, their body adapts as they go. It's he got 1 pound stronger. He was able to adjust to that on the fly. So as he gets markedly stronger, he's pitching through that, and he automatically makes the adjustments needed. So, like, don't back off. It's real easy. Don't back off the regular sport. Don't back off their concentration sport while you do this. Like, practice that sport all year long, at least a little bit. So, yeah, I don't know. And then it brings us into the topic of Like, the other thing that drives me nuts is these functional training experts that will take Gumby, the kid Gumby, and like, okay, well, we don't want to have you lift because that'll make you muscle bound. But we're going to do plyometrics and sprints where you change speed at the drop of a dime. Like, holy shit, that is twice as dangerous. Like, they don't have the mental acuity to realize that the loads they're putting on them is something that they say is drastically safer. Like, you're having this kid jump off a box when he can't hardly sit down and stand up. So his body's not ready for that. The loads that crap puts on you, the loads that sprinting and like these sports put on you is
pretty damaging.
Yeah, it's beyond their recognition. They don't realize that, like, if this guy's running at full speed and you want him to turn around at the drop of a hat, like, the amount of pressure it takes to do that,
right? Deceleration
is well beyond what he's seeing in a squat. You know, so
that's a good topic, actually.
Yeah, and you'll see those kids generally get slower in their sport, right? And if you watch their mechanics, you'll see that deceleration ability is the first thing to go. Their joints are going into kind of weird-looking positions, and their times, whether it's a T-time test, whatever, are going to be slower because of it. And they're at a higher injury risk.
Yes. So, anyway, I'm not sure we helped anybody. I mean, as far as, like... I feel like that. Sadly, I feel that way about a lot of our shows. It's like we're going to help 2 people, and the rest of them are just going to blow it off.
Well, maybe somebody can point. So if their coach spews this kind of urban legend at them, like, you know what? Just listen to this. I just answer what each one of the arguments that these guys are having. Just what's your answer for it? You know, How come there's more home runs? How come people want to see that more? How come? Everything is more submaximal. There's 100 different arguments there. At least they can show the coach and be like, okay, tough guy, you know, you might want to rethink this. It's kind of the difference between a head coach and a strength coach. I think that's why you need strength coaches sometimes. Because
I literally always just ask the one question about what, and outside of health, which we know, I honestly would say we know it's not health that the reason steroids are essentially banned in most sports, right? What's the reason? Like, why would you take steroids? Why would steroids help in the 100 meter, right? There's not a special steroid that's like, here's your speed steroid, right? It is all related to your muscle mass strength and force output, which is related to those 2 things, right? I mean, maybe there's some stuff out there that I don't know about, but for the most part, people get mad at steroids because they're like, oh, you're cheating. Why? Why does that exist? If that's the case, why are you even mad about it?
Yes.
If it's cheating, explain to me why. Explain to me why, the Bulgarian and Russian teams, everyone hates them because of their quote unquote steroid use. And why are they so dominant? Is there a technique drug they're taking that I haven't heard about?
Exactly. There is no steroid for technique, but somehow it helps Olympic weightlifting. That is supposedly a only technique sport. Makes no fucking sense.
It's the same for all sports. I mean, I can't even imagine a sport that it doesn't help. I mean, why are you mad at Lance Armstrong? That's an endurance sport, right?
Yep.
Why are you mad at Lance Armstrong when, he just was endurance, but also stronger than the other endurers, right?
Yeah,
I think it's a great point.
By their argument, he should have gotten worse. He should have taken
slower
and lost. Yeah, he should have gotten slower.
Yep.
Barry Bonds should have gotten worse.
It's a great point, Jarrell, about what's the real reason? This sounds really salty, but what's the real reason you're banning some of these things? It's because they're an unfair advantage, because muscle mass matters. Yeah, there's neurological benefits and other stuff, I'm sure, but it's not, I mean, like you were saying, Phil, these guys want return on investment. They're not doing it for some bleeding heart health reason. Oh, he might have high cholesterol, or, his blood pressure looks kind of high. He's a lineman, and so, it does make you wonder, what's the real motivator? It's not always maximal health or side effects. It's because of the unfair advantage.
And I've been lucky enough in my career to be able to deal and talk to a lot of professional athletes that are aging. Many of them turn towards performance-enhancing drugs to extend their career.
Oh, sure.
And I cannot blame them. When you're talking, okay, I can extend my career 3 more years and make $75 more million.
Yeah.
Or I can not take them and be out of the league. Like, they can change, like, $75 million. You're talking about changing your grandkids and their kids' lives. Yeah. So you can't blame them. And to a point, there's got to be some point here in professional sports, like you talked about, where we all wake up, like us 4 here realize that it's happening in professional sports. Like, it just is. At some point, you have 2 choices. Somehow ban them all, just like we've tried to ban all drugs in the United States, and that's worked real well. Or,
right.
Or you just say, fuck it. Go ahead, because you guys are doing it anyways. And it's not cheating if everybody can do it. All of a sudden, that's out of the window. Like, if it's just legal, doesn't matter. Now, if you don't take it, you're stupid. But, if you don't
a lot of
take
this stuff it comes down to what the average Joe wants. Because you could make all these arguments about alcohol, high blood pressure, blood cholesterol, liver damage. You could, but that's if lots of people want it. Suddenly, that's very different than something like a PED. And I know we're on a tangent now, but performance-enhancing drugs they only matter to a relatively tiny % of the voters.
Yeah.
Right. And so the laws are going to be really harsh on them because it's easy to grandstand against them.
Yeah.
Anyway.
All
right.
Good show. Hope everybody enjoyed it. So.
Well, see you next time.
See you
next week.
Iron Radio is accepting donations. If you like what we do, the professors, the scientists, the bodybuilding show promoters, the athletes themselves in powerlifting and bodybuilding, please consider making a donation. We also are accepting supporting members. So for $4 a month, which is frankly less than the bank sneaks out of your account in fees, you can step up and support a form of sort of public radio for the bodybuilding and powerlifting and strength community. The Iron Radio podcast and all of the audio on ironradio.org is for informational purposes only. If you're interested in starting a diet or exercise program, it's important to check with your physician. Also seek the help of registered dietitians, athletic trainers, and qualified exercise physiologists in order to make the progress that you need.